my channel. My name is Eva if you're new here. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday and that you're all not as terrified of the end of the year as I am. No, but seriously, I just feel like this year is flying by. I don't know where it went. I can't believe we're already pretty much in December. And yeah. So I figured today I would talk about some of the books that I have read this year. I'm hoping to do a reading video like this every month, so it's more like a monthly what I read. But since this is the first one I've done, I thought maybe I would just review all the books that I've read this year, and I think the end of last year. So pretty much all the books I've read recently. I'm trying to read more. That's one of my goals on my reset videos, is to read more. I think I made a goal of reading at least 2 books last month, and I can't remember how many books I made the goal for this month. I wrote it down, but I'm definitely reading more than I was previously, and I'm pretty proud about that, and I'm really enjoying it. Definitely stick around if you want to hear about the books that I've read, and I'm going to be rating them out of 5 and just telling you a little bit about them without giving too much away, but definitely letting you guys know which one I recommend. As always, don't forget to subscribe if you're new, like this video if you want to see more reading videos like this, and comment down below what types of books you guys like to read, like fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, whatever it is. Always interested to hear what you all have to say in the comments. So I actually made a list of books that I have read in the past year or so, and I was surprised that I've read this many. Maybe it's not a lot to other people who are, you know, avid readers, but for me, I have not been reading at all. I love reading, it's just getting into that routine and that habit of reading. So I was surprised. I have about 9 books on this list, and actually 10 because I just finished one last week. So, I mean, 10 books in a year for me is pretty good. I know that might not seem like a lot to other people, but for me, that's pretty good compared to my, like, maybe 2 or 3 books a year. So I actually think I'm going to go by the oldest book that I've read not compared to, but work my way up to the newest book that I just finished. So with that being said, I think the oldest book on this list that I've read was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I believe. Michaelides? I think it's Alex Michaelides, and I could be saying that completely wrong. But regardless, this was one of the best books I've ever read. I would give it a 5 out of 5. Definitely a psychological thriller. I did not want to put it down. I kept reading it everywhere I went, and I finished it in probably a few days. Honestly, one of the best books I've ever read. And I actually, on this list, I know I'm jumping around now, but I did read his other book, The Maidens, and this one I gave a 3.5 out of 5. It wasn't as good, but obviously I love his writing and I love the storyline. The Maidens was more of kind of it was still a thriller, but it was definitely a different vibe. It took place on like a campus and had to do with students and a professor and kind of like Greek mythology. So it was definitely interesting, and it definitely kept me going, and it picked up as the book went on. It was a little slow to start, but it definitely picked up about halfway through. I did love it, but I would still give it a 3.5, maybe 3.8, I would say, just because I love the story in The Silent Patient much more, and it just really kept me going from the first page to the very last page. So those 2 books, The Silent Patient and The Maidens by Alex Michaelides, very good books, but I would recommend starting with The Silent Patient. So I also have down here We Were Liars. I know that was a really popular book. Who was that by? I have my laptop right here. Just to confirm, I'm so bad with authors. I just pay attention to the title, which is horrible. But let's see. E. Lockhart. So We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I'm trying to remember, this was so long ago, I don't even remember really what this was about. I know that it involved a group of friends and something happens. I mean, I do remember what happens, but I'm not going to give anything away. But yes, something happens, and I think it's kind of like one of the characters piecing something piecing this all together and trying to figure out exactly what happens based on what their friends say and just based on kind of like what they observe. And it's, I guess, I don't know what I would categorize this as. Maybe a drama, mystery, kind of. It is a mystery, but it isn't, I guess. You're trying to figure out something, and then it reveals itself at the end, but it's not quite the typical mystery. Definitely wasn't bad. I didn't enjoy it as much as some other thrillers that I've read, and I did want to know what happened. It just didn't build up as much for me, and it wasn't as satisfying to read the end. But a lot of other people really, really, really love it. So I think it just depends on what kind of book you gravitate towards, and you know, if you like the story or not, and what kinds of stories you like to read about. So I think it's worth it just to see which group you fall into and if it's something that you really believe is worth reading and you really like. We Were Liars, I would probably give a 3 out of 5, which now makes me want to rate the Maidens a little higher because the Maidens was much better than We Were Liars. So maybe Maidens is 3.8 to 4 out of 5 stars. We Were Liars was definitely 3 out of 5 for me. So The Firekeeper's Daughter, I remember this. This was actually, I don't know how I even picked this book up. What did I even do? I think I might have even just seen it in the library and thought it looked interesting, or I saw someone else read it or something, but this was definitely worth it. It's a longer book. I think it's about 500 pages or more, and the story was very interesting. Definitely not something I've read before. It has to do with, oh wow, I really don't know if I remember this, but it has to do with, I think, a Native American girl and her relationships, but then she finds things out along the way about the people that she's in a relationship with, and then there's a lot that goes on. That's definitely, again, one of those books that picks up as it goes on, but again, it wasn't a slow start though. I was very interested in her as a person, like as a character, and I learned a lot too about culture and their culture, and it was just very interesting. I really have not read a book like that before. I gave that actually a 4 out of 5 stars just because I love the storyline, I loved the character development, and it did keep me going, and at the end I was very satisfied. I was just so happy that I finished it all the way through. That was actually one of the first longer books that I've read in a while, so I felt very accomplished, but also the ending just made me really happy. So definitely 4 out of 5 stars. And yeah, I would definitely recommend that. Let me see what the author is. Again, I'm horrible with authors. So the author is Angeline Boulley, I think. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I'm going to put pictures of the book on this video anyway, so you guys can see. So yeah, 4 out of 5 stars for The Firekeeper's Daughter. Moving on to All the Light We Cannot See. This, along with The Silent Patient, but even more so, this was one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. This book, I cannot say enough about. I don't even think I'm going to talk about it because my words cannot do it justice. It's just... It was so good. It's I guess, historical fiction about a girl who's blind, and it involves the war going on and people she meets and her family, and it's just... It's so touching, and it's wonderful, and I love it. 5 out of 5 stars. If I could give it like 10 out of 5 stars, I would. This is, of course, my favorite book. I don't even remember the author. Let me see. So this book is by Anthony Doerr. So yeah, this book really, out of this entire list of books that I'm about to give you, or that I have given you so far, this is probably the number 1 book I think you should read, All the Light We Cannot See. And I think he has other books as well. So I don't think I've read any other books by him, but I definitely plan to. So 5 out of 5 for that. A similar book that I read in the same kind of historical fiction, I guess, category was A Thousand Splendid Suns. I know that this is a really popular book because it's by the same person who wrote Kite Runner. I think it's Khaled Hosseini. This was a very good book. I put down 4 out of 5. Honestly, I would say 4.5 out of 5. It's funny because the story, it's almost the perfect book. The storyline is perfect, and it's just kind of concise. It's like nothing's missing. Every aspect of the story was written about and explored, and the character development was just amazing, and you grow attached to the characters, and it's inspirational, it's moving, it's touching, it's sad, it's happy. It's like every emotion I felt while reading this book. I cried, I laughed. I mean, it does put things into perspective because it's a historical fiction. It sheds light on some horrible things that have happened throughout history or are currently happening. But it's amazing. And honestly, actually, I think I'm going to change that to 5 out of 5. The only reason I gave it a 4 out of 5 is because, again, it's not typically a book I would read. I'm not too into historical fiction books. I'm more definitely thriller, fantasy, young adult, like mysteries. But in terms of the quality of the book and the content and the characters and just the storyline in itself, definitely 5 out of 5 stars. And I would also highly recommend that to anyone who's interested in reading these books. That is almost up there with All the Light We Cannot See and The Silent Patient. So definitely worth reading for sure. Okay, now we're getting to books that I've read pretty recently. And so we're moving into more mystery, fantasy books. And I have on my list The Last Thing He Told Me. This was kind of just a thriller mystery that I picked up because I thought it looked interesting. And this is by Laura Dave. So it was good. It was a solid book. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I know that doesn't seem solid, but it really was like a decent book. I think I just wasn't satisfied with the ending. And again, everybody has their own opinions on books and endings and whether they like the story or not. I feel like there should be a sequel or something to further explain certain things, but I definitely enjoyed it and I loved the concept. I think I read this in a day. So yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say I enjoyed it if I finished it in a day, but the characters were good. I can't say anything bad about this book except for the fact that I just wanted more. That's all. So I gave this a 3 out of 5. Just a quick read. I think it's about 300 pages, and I wouldn't say it's the best book I've ever read, but definitely fun if, you want to read on like a Sunday afternoon and you're looking for a cool little like mystery thriller. Moving on to the Caraval series. Caraval. Great books. I have only read 2 out of the 3 books so far, and the first 2, Caraval and Legendary, I want to say. Yeah. So it's Caraval, Legendary, and Finale by Stephanie Garber. So these were great books. The Caraval first book and the Legendary, the second book, 4 out of 5 stars, even 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's a fantasy young adult book, and I think it's young adult or teen. I don't know. I can't remember. But it's definitely worth the read if you're looking for something, magical and fun, and the storyline is great. I actually grew much closer to the characters in the second book, and the character that I thought I didn't like in the first book is actually my favorite character now in the second book. So I'm looking very forward to reading the third book and seeing what happens. Both of the first book and the second book each had a very solid story, and I didn't feel like there was anything that they left out aside from the fact that I know there was going to be a sequel. So, but the story in itself was really fun, and really great, and I love the way the author organized the chapters and broke it down to different nights at, I don't want to give too much away, but it was broken down into, you know, a way that I really liked, and just kind of organized it in a fun way. And yeah, I really enjoyed those books. So I will definitely post an update on my next reading video if I can get a hold of the third book on what I think about the final book in the series. So look forward to that. Okay. I was running out of space on my phone. Yes, I'm filling this on the phone because I do not have anything else. So, okay, so anyway, I was gonna say my last book, which was A Court of Thorns and Roses. This book is amazing. It is, oh my gosh. It's by Sarah Maas, Maas. And I also just finished A Court of Mist and Fury, I want to say. Yeah, A Court of Mist and Fury. That's book number 2. This, 5 out of 5. Both books, 5 out of 5. That's all I have to say about it. Amazing. They're young adult fantasy books about mythical creatures and a human girl, and how their worlds combine, and I am just absolutely in love with this series. I purposely read the second book very slowly because I did not want it to end. So yeah, it's there's not much more I could say without giving it away, but it's basically just a human girl and fairies and what happens between them and her family and their family, and oh, it's amazing. So I will definitely probably have read the third book actually by the time the next reading video goes up. So definitely keep an eye out for that, because I mean, these books are just amazing, and I actually want to read the other series that this author has out. I think it's called The Assassin's Blade, but I definitely want to finish this, and I have other series that I want to read before I get to this other series that the author has written. But definitely just great books. So honestly, as a matter of fact, let me look through my list. So if I had to recommend 3 books off of this list for you to read, I would say A Court of Thorns and Roses, All the Light We Cannot See, and The Silent Patient. Those are the 3 books that out of this list I gave definitely 5 out of 5, and I would give like 10 out of 5 if I could, because those 3 books, and actually all 3 of those books are completely different, because A Court of Thorns and Roses is young adult fantasy, All the Light We Cannot See is historical fiction, and The Silent Patient is mystery thriller. So if you're looking for some variety and, you know, you really just want like to sit down with some good books that keep you going and keep you interested, I would really suggest reading those books. So that is my list of books so far in the past year that I've read, and books that I really enjoyed for the most part, you know, and I'm looking forward to really prioritizing reading again, and I think I have been, and I have a huge stack of books over here off camera that I plan on reading, and you know, a couple I just, you know, it happens when you're just not into a book, and I debate whether I should continue reading it, and I feel like I should, just to have, you know, to make sure I don't like it pretty much. But you know, yeah, I'm really excited to maybe like start doing this regularly, and again, I'd be interested in seeing what books you all are reading, or what kind of books you recommend, or what your favorite book of all time is. I don't even know what mine would be, but I'll have to give that some thought. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this video, and that you can now have something to read if you're in a reading slump, or if you haven't heard of some of these books, you know, you have some ideas for what to read next. So alright, thank you so much for joining me on this video, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!